constitutional expert here on the Scotch Show, Byron Henry, law partner in Frisco, Texas, solidcounsel.com, joining us here to talk about the senators' confirmation hearings that are ongoing now. How is the senator doing today, Byron?
I think he's doing pretty well. I think there were only a couple minor surprises. One is the fact that he said he would recuse himself from any investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails based on some comments he had made.
Well, that's easy to say because there won't be an investigation.
Well, yes, but I thought there might have still been something left going on at state or at the Department of Justice or by the FBI. So in any event, if there were, he would not be involved in it. That's one. The other was, I don't think it was full-throated, but he basically said that, Roe versus Wade was settled law. And while the Attorney General doesn't have a whole lot to do with this area of law, he said it deserves respect and it's been settled so long. So I'm sure that didn't sit well with a lot of pro-life advocates and people that believe in the conservatism of Jeff Sessions. But otherwise, it's been rather, nondescript, some criticism of him discussing the NAACP and American Civil Liberties Union as un-American, but taken in context, he was talking about when they stray outside their normal goals and their normal processes to start talking about foreign policy and other issues. So I don't think there's been any surprises. And in fact, I think that if there's one of these nominees that the Democrats have targeted, so to speak, I suspect that Jeff Sessions is a poor target because I don't believe he's going to have any problem with confirmation, especially when a moderate senator like Susan Collins from Maine basically introduces him with glowing remarks. When that happens, you're probably in good shape as a nominee.
Well, the Senate itself is such a brotherhood, is such a fraternity that most times senators get a pass from their colleagues in the Senate. They asked John Kerry some tough questions, but they just rubber stamped his nomination for the most part. And I think Jeff Sessions will get asked some tough questions, especially from the Civil Rights Caucus. But at the end of the day, they'll confirm his nomination without any problems.
I agree, and of course we do have the unprecedented or history-making, if you want to call it that, situation where a junior senator from New Jersey is going to testify against the nomination of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. And in fact, according to some reports I've read, I don't know this myself, but the reports have said it would be the first time in history that a sitting senator has testified against another sitting senator for a cabinet position. So despite all his support, it sounds like Cory Booker from New Jersey is going to testify against Senator Sessions, and that's despite the glowing remarks Senator Booker's made about Jeff Sessions in the past.
Right. Cory Booker, there is one reason why Cory Booker is doing that, and that's for the benefit of Cory Booker.
That's right. And in fact, the civil rights angle was the wrong angle to go because there are some real questions by members of the libertarian wing of the Republican Party, conservatives that are libertarian, have a libertarian bent about his views on enforcing marijuana laws against states that have basically made it legal, about his civil asset forfeiture, allowing law enforcement to basically take people's property when they're arrested, regardless of whether they're convicted, and divvy it up among law enforcement agencies and make money off of it. Those are real questions in the law enforcement world that he will actually be in charge of, that conservatives and libertarians want to ask. But instead, you pull the race card out. It's the common play by the left. It distorts and confuses the entire issues that you should be asking Jeff Sessions about in these confirmation hearings, the tough questions, because it's just a smokescreen.
You mentioned
been serving with him for 20 years.
That's the problem, though. You mentioned civil asset forfeiture, and everybody's eyes will start to glaze over. But you put a young black senator up against an old white senator to talk civil rights, and all of a sudden you got a primetime bout worth watching.
I agree. That's the problem with politicizing these hearings and not making them really about the record of the actual person sitting in the chair. And there are some issues that you could ask Senator Sessions about his views and how he would deal with Donald Trump, how he's going to enforce the immigration laws with what we've had going on, the immigration problem in this country for the past couple decades. There's some real questions about how he would behave as Attorney General that are going to get glossed over. They will not be reported. It will be all about some civil rights issues and some statements he may or may not have made in context 20 or 30 years ago. And unfortunately, that's not going to tell the American people what kind of Attorney General Jeff Sessions is going to be.
I'm all about transparency, and I think with modern technology, we have the ability to be more transparent in government than in the history of this country or any other country in the history of society. However, is some of these senators are complaining that 2 days is not enough time to properly vet a senator that they have personally known and worked with for the last 30 years, which seems ridiculous. If you closed the doors to the Senate chambers and turned off the television camera, this vetting process would take about half an hour.
If they even had one, they'd probably have a voice vote for a senator that sat on so many committees and worked alongside so many of these senior senators from both sides of the aisle. They may not even need to have a hearing. They'd probably just do a voice vote. Yeah,
so that's kind of the problem I have with the whole dog and pony show that some of these confirmation hearings become. There are some senators, there are some nominees that I don't know much about that I'm hoping get questioned more in depth than Senator Sessions. And as you've pointed out on some of those libertarian issues, I've got some issues with Senator Sessions, but generally speaking, there are certainly worse candidates that Donald Trump could have put forth for that cabinet position.
Oh, certainly. When I said questions, I just mean tough questions on how he's going to deal with it. I'm not saying he's going to take a position against civil liberties or whatnot, but he's been avid about enforcing marijuana laws and drug laws across the country, even if a state has legalized it, which has federalism concerns. You know, conservatives are all about federalism and states' rights and the balance of power between the states and the federal government.
I'm sorry, you said are. I think the operative verb is were all concerned about that.
Well, now that the conservatives or Republicans are in charge of the federal government, I'm sure it can do no wrong for the next 4 years.
Now that the Republicans are in control, they were about states' rights.
And I think that'd be a huge mistake if they abandoned one of the structural principles of the Constitution simply because they have a fleeting control of the federal government for 2 to 4 years.
And the Republican Party, if one thing, has never been short-sighted or idiotic.
Yeah, and hopefully they look down the long term. They think more long term with respect to some of these nominees and the way these people are going to represent the country and not just the party, like Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense and Senator Sessions.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think Senator Sessions will breeze right through, though, and next up will be Homeland Security. That's the next confirmation hearing, which I believe starts tomorrow, if it didn't start today already.
I think it starts this afternoon, and that one shouldn't have a whole lot of fireworks because he's got support on both sides of the aisle, and there hasn't been this grandstanding. You know, the race card hasn't been played, at least not yet, with respect to General Kelly. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, the Kelly hearing, I believe, is starting right now. Byron Henry, constitutional expert, partner in the appellate law section at Scheef and Stone in Frisco. Website is solidcounsel.com. Byron, as always, we appreciate your time.